everyone, I'm Morgan, and today I wanted to talk to you about the books that I read in the month of July. So I managed to read 12 books in July. As always, I'm going to talk to you about them from the one I like the least and the one I like the most. So without further ado, let's just get into it. So the book I liked the least in July was Meet Dog Freddy One Day by David Sedaris, I think. I listened to this one on audiobook. I'd heard that it was like the funniest audiobook ever, and I hope that's not true because I really didn't think it was funny. It was a part memoir, part humor book, and I really didn't care for it. The only reason I finished it was because it was on audiobook and it was only like 3 hours long, and I was listening to it at like double speed or something. Otherwise, I really would not have finished it. But to be fair, I think it is funnier if you are American because the humor is very, like, you say centric, and he also makes a lot of jokes about learning French, and I mean, I'm French, so I don't really get that. I mean, I know that my language isn't really the easiest, but still, like, I don't know, I really didn't think this was funny and the word interesting. Yeah, I would not recommend this. The second book I want to talk about is The Pisces by Melissa Broder. This one I have a bit mixed feelings about. I didn't think it was really bad, but you see, we follow this woman who meets this merman, and they start having a relationship, and she's questioning her whole life. She needs to change some things, what is she doing and all that stuff, and I like the reflection like on her life and all that, but there were many graphic sex scenes that I really did not need. I mean, I don't mind them, but really, like, I didn't need to read that at all. It was just pretty disgusting at times, and I don't know, I didn't enjoy it, and sorry, but spoiler, there's a dog that dies, and also, like, why? I don't know, it was a bit stupid at times, though I liked a bit of the thoughts on the book, but mostly I didn't really love it, and I thought the main character was a bit stupid, so yeah, not really my thing. The third book I want to talk about is Nutshell by Ian McEwan. I had high hopes for this one because I had heard that it was told from the perspective of a fetus, which it is. But, I mean, the whole premise sounds interesting, and it still does to me, but the actual book wasn't really what I wanted from it. Again, there were a few sex scenes told from the perspective of a fetus, which were a bit disgusting, and just the story overall didn't really, I mean, it did go somewhere at some point in some way, but I don't know, I wanted something more from it, and sometimes the writing was a bit too much. Like, I like Ian McEwan's writing, but at the same time, he tries to make too much, I don't know, comparisons and just stuff, like, he makes it a bit hard to read at times, and not necessarily very pretty, I think. So yeah, overall not great, like, not a bad book, but yeah, not the best either. Then I want to talk about Coraline by Neil Gaiman. This is my first book I ever read from Neil Gaiman, and I didn't think it was great. It was a middle grade about this girl whose parents are taken by some kind of, not really monsters, but kind of monsters, if you want. They seem a bit like ghosts, but not exactly. Anyway, it's a bit confusing, but I didn't love it either. It was just was just not that interesting. I thought I totally could see where it was going. I mean, again, it's middle grade, and I think that most middle grade don't really work with me anymore, unfortunately. But besides that, I don't know. It just, I wasn't really invested in the story or anything. It's just, there wasn't much to it, you know? Which, I don't know, I mean, it was fine, and I'm pretty sure I would have liked it when I was a kid, but right now I just think there wasn't much to it. The next book I want to talk about is the first book in the L'Arabe du Futur series. It's, in English, I think it's called also Arabe of the Future, by Riyad Satouf. He's a Frenchman who is originally from Syria, and so he tells his life. Originally, he was born in France, and then he moved with his family to Syria, and so he just tells his story in a graphic novel format, and it was okay, really. I mean, that's so it's still on multiple volumes, and this was the first one. So the like first 5 years or something of his life, maybe more, I don't remember exactly. But I think I'm more interested in like the next volumes when he grows up and goes back to Syria, because right now, I mean, the one I read was not really during the very hard parts in Syria. Like it's starting to get hard, but it's not really in the war or anything. I'm not more interested in like that part of the story of the country, so I'll be more interested in that. But right now it's just beginning, and I pretty much knew I mean, the kind of things that were happening, like shortages of food, slowly also, and also the involvement of Islamic law and all that stuff, and the kind of cult of the president and all that stuff. Still, I think it's pretty interesting and also very accessible. So like even a kid could read that, and it's not really like too hard to read or anything. Not like Persepolis that I read, which was set in Iran and was, I mean, I wouldn't say graphic, but like really impactful. Like there was a lot of things that just you would not want a kid to read, but this one makes things more easy to get through. Then I read Bridge 108 by someone. I will put it there anyway. I don't remember the author, but this book is set to come out in the beginning of 2020. It's dystopian, and again, I didn't hate it, but I didn't think it was the best dystopian I've ever read. It's pretty classic. Basically, the thing in this book is that water has started to become scarce, and so people, it's in basically a classic dystopian setting. Children are raised a lot in camps, especially if they don't have parents. And then beginning of the book, we see our main character, I don't remember his name anymore either, who is a guy, and he at the beginning works in this, not really factory, but basically he creates clothes for this woman and then sells it in a market. He originally wanted to build a life with his mother, but she just disappeared at some point. She moved with him, but there was a big problem. They were like in the desert or something, and she lost him, and so he's all alone, and he got caught by some women who made him work for him for years. And so that's where we start with the story. We got many different perspectives in the book, which helped like to understand the world, but didn't really like interest me that much in itself, because like we saw a lot of different characters, but in the end we didn't really know what happened to them. We just saw the parts that helped us to understand the main character's life. So overall, just not the best. There's also a big problem of immigration in this book, in this world, because so some countries have more problems with water than others, but they can't just immigrate. They have to do like a huge work for a very long time, and then maybe they can stay in another country. And so that's the thing, because the main character is not actually from that country either. He's like he wants to stay in the UK, I think, but he's originally like from Spain, and so it's a bit hard for him to do that. And so I like the part about immigration because it's really like contemporary, like to our world, but besides that, it wasn't really a great book. Like I've already forgotten a lot about it, so yeah. Then I read High Fidelity by Nick Hornby. I'd heard a lot about this book. It's about this guy who's basically an asshole and wants to understand why he's now alone and always getting dumped. And like, so he talks to the reader about all his relationships like prior to that time, and how he acted, and he basically acts like an asshole all the time. And I was kind of interested in him, you know, like in his story and everything. And the writing was okay too. Quite enjoyed it, and I like some of the characters. Like I enjoyed this book, but the thing is, I mean, he's totally an asshole, and it's pretty acknowledged. But in the end, he still gets everything he wants, and that's what really bothered me, because like all throughout the book it was really accepted that he was such an asshole. I mean, he was trying to make things better a bit, but still, and I don't know, I think he doesn't deserve what he gets in the end, and that just bothered me. But overall the book was quite interesting. He made a lot of references to artists, musicians and that stuff, because he was he holds a record shop, and so there's a lot about that, and all his friends that he works with, and sometimes he sleeps with some women and treats them not so great, but you know, yeah, I don't know, I thought this book was okay. Like I enjoyed it, but as I said, I would have wished him something less. Then I read Recursion by Black Crouch, which was a recent release. This was really interesting, a bit confusing at first, but I've heard that most of his books are. This story follows, well, two main characters mostly. One who is this man who is a policeman in the US, and he's tracking, basically there's this disease in this world that makes people remember like another life, and so they become kind of crazy because they see that there's this life that they don't remember, and they kind of want to remember, but at the same time, like, they have other memories that are along those, and so it's all confusing, and they become crazy, and a lot of people kill themselves because of that. And in the beginning of the book, he has to help this woman who wants to kill herself, and it becomes a huge thing, and he like keeps going. I mean, she does kill herself, but he goes to investigate, and he goes to this company, and he discovers that there's this this person who created a chair that can go back to one of your memories, and so you can like go back in time to that memory, but once you get, so you can save that memory and relive like your life and change things. And once you get to the time where you used the chair, then all the memories come back. And so like it's this huge thing, and we get also a perspective from the woman who actually created this chair. And obviously every time you create like something huge like this, it can be used for a bad purpose. So there are a lot of things happening, and it becomes worse and worse, and we see them trying to like keep things going. And it was really interesting, you know, and the whole concept is really cool, and I quite like the characters, but I just thought it was a bit too long. Like it's about 450 pages, I think, maybe a little bit more. It was stalling at some point, and I think there were a bit of things that could have been cut out and it would still be as good. But overall, I was still pretty interested. Just not, I was interested but not invested, you know? So, I don't know. Then I reread the 4th Harry Potter book, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, and I really enjoyed that, though I did think that it was a bit too long and that it could have been edited down. And that's the first time I've ever thought that. But then again, I haven't reread the whole series for a long time. So yeah, just there were some things that I thought could have been cut out again in this book. Though I always enjoy rereading Harry Potter books because I love this world so much. I thought the writing was not necessarily the best I've ever read. Like, I still like it, as I say, always like Harry Potter books, but I've been just more critical of this one. Then I read a non-fiction book, which is Dispatches from Syria. They came the morning they came for us, by Janine di Giovanni. This was written by a journalist who went to Syria during the war many times, and she tells about the stories of the people that she met. And so it's a lot about the war, and she also gives a bit of history before the war to get more context. And this it was great, but it was really, really hard to read because like there was so much things happening, and you're like, I just had so many questions, and I kept going and reading articles after I finished it about the war in Syria even now, because this goes until like 2014 or 15, no, maybe after, I don't remember. Yeah, like 2015. And so I want to know if things had changed since then, and they haven't much. And I didn't know that, well, everything, how, so you have bombs that come from rebels, you also have bombs that are placed from the government. It's crazy. It's basically a civil war, and so many people are dying, and it's crazy. Really, I couldn't believe it. It's really a short book, but I preferred reading it in small chunks because it was so hard to get through. But I was really interested in it. It made me want to read more nonfiction about war and other stuff. The second to last book I want to talk to you about is Emerald City and Other Stories by Jennifer Egan. This is a short story collection by Jennifer Egan, which I just really enjoyed. There was one particular story that I really loved because she managed to not use any pronouns for the main characters. You did get her name. I think her name was Natasha or something, as the main character in this this story, but you didn't get any pronouns, so you weren't sure at times whether she was a girl or a boy. there were other stories there were a lot of it I really enjoyed. So overall I would really recommend it. Basically what ties them together, I think, is the idea to want to change in your life, and to discover new things. And it was really good, and I really want to read more by this author. And the last book I want to talk about, the one I enjoyed the most, was The Time Traveler's Wife by Audrey Niffenegger. This book, I've been wanting to read it for like years, and I really hoped I would love it, and I so did. So as the title says, this has time travel. So you have this man, Henry, who time travels without meaning to since he was like 5, and so just at times he just like, you know, sitting there, and then he's like in another time, either in the past or in the future. And you have this girl, so Clary, who he's involved with from like when he's 20 to life, you know. And a lot of the time when he time travels to the past, he actually sees her when she's like a kid, and it's really sweet. I love this story. So we got both perspectives, Clary's and Henry's, and both of the characters I really loved. They were well fleshed out. A few things also made me laugh, and just I love this book so much, and I was so invested in it. It's a pretty chunky one, but I got through it pretty quickly, and I really like the way time travel was used in this one. And I actually plan on making a video about time travel books once I've read more and see which ones I prefer, because I love time travel, anything that has to do with time. This one's definitely going to be in that video because it was so great. So if you haven't read it, please do, but I'm pretty sure you have, because like this book has been everywhere for years, in my world anyway. So yeah, that was the last one. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please tell me if you've read any of the books I mentioned, or what you read in July, as I would love to know. And please subscribe if you want to, and I hope to see you soon in another video. Goodbye!
Dream I know, deep up my feelings for you.